I'm Johannes Riegler. I'm the moderator for today. I'm working with the management board in driving urban transitions in a driving urban transitions program or partnership. And besides that, I also run a podcast called Cities Reimagined, if you want to check that out. Yeah, I would also like to thank Simon for pulling this whole thing together, because he made this whole lunch talk possible, really, because he organized it. He communicated with everybody. He set everything up. So big thank you to you, Simon. And I hope everybody has a nice lunch, because this is the whole point about lunch talks. Everybody's is able to have lunch, but the people actually speaking in a lunch talk, because that would be a bit awkward. But I hope you enjoy your lunch. If you do, feel free to connect on your phone and go for a walk, because this is really, there are no presentations. You don't need to look at the screen, really. This is almost a podcast format. So if you have a chance and the weather is nice wherever you are, take the chance and go for a walk, maybe. Here it's pretty, I'm in Vienna, Austria, so it's pretty nice weather. It's maybe 20 degrees, maybe a bit more. I hope it's the same for you. If you like the rain, maybe it rains there. Whatever you like. Yeah, so before we start into the lunch talk, this is supposed to be a bit of an interactive exercise as well. So if you have comments or notes or questions, please just look out for the chat and pop them in the chat. Simon, I think you will have a look at the chat if something comes in, if something is interesting to bring forward to this conversation. And yeah, I think that is it. With that leaves me with framing the topic a little bit. Yeah, we know in 2024 we are deep in the Anthropocene. We are deep in the age of humans, and you can see it every day how the impact of human processes and activities is having or has having impact on the ecological and planetary systems. And you can see that these systems are already out of balance, be it just recently by the floods in Porto Alegre in Brazil or the heat waves in India at the moment. And actually recognizing this, being aware of our impact on the planet is not only something very negative or something very frightening, but it also has some, let's say, empowering aspect to it, because it means that we can change our processes. And eventually, if we are in time, we can reverse these processes as well, or deal with them in a different way. So we are not only in a bunch of crises, or faced with a bunch of crises like the ecological crisis or the biodiversity crisis, the climate crisis, but probably also in a crisis of imaginations, which, allows us or would allow us to think more freely, to break free from the norms, from this often probably neoliberal ideas, but also it requires not only incremental improvements, but might also require very significant shifts in how we do things, in how we run our systems, our human systems. And it might require new perspectives and new approaches. And this is what we are going to discuss today. That driving change also means new approaches, new perspectives, and actually really tapping up on our creativity and our dreams to make this transition worthwhile to go, and to actually see where we want to go and go there. So today we will touch up on the role of culture, art, and creativity, and yeah, what these disciplines, aspects, these forms of thinking can teach us for urban transitions as well. So we hope to open your awareness to these alternative futures also. And I have a great pleasure to have, yeah, very nice and very knowledgeable panelists. I wouldn't even call it panelists. It's probably urban lunch talkers, or people on the urban lunch talk today. So we have Johan, are you filling in for Jenny? Is that so? Or is there?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Are you filling in for Jenny? Because on my agenda.
No, I'm not. I was invited to this lunch talk, so I had really no preconceptions. I read the information and it sounded interesting.
Ah, right. But then Simon, is Jenny joining us? Anyway, we have Annika Enqvist in this round and Susanne Thurén. And before we start into the discussion, try to find Jenny somewhere. Maybe Simon, would you, or Christina, would you like to talk a little bit about the ENUTC program and what that is all about and what the last call was and how that connects to today's theme?
Yes, I will say something short about ENUTC. We're part of a collaboration called JPI Urban Europe, and this lunch talk that we have right now is connected to the research program ENUTC, which is a part of JPI Urban Europe. So ENUTC, the program is inviting researchers, urban government authorities, including cities, municipalities, businesses, civil society, and other stakeholders to build a transnational consortia. And last year we launched this call about art and design. And last November, our new creative projects kicked off in order to enable and support new exciting ways of capacity building for urban transformations. That's briefly about ENUTC as a part of JPI Urban Europe.
All right, thank you. And also, before we start into discussion, I'm super happy that it's a very Swedish discussion today, I figure. But for me, there are a couple of loose ends coming together because it was last year in February that a couple of colleagues from Formas and myself went to Umeå for the the Enqvist European Creative Industry Summit, I believe. And what we discussed there was super interesting because we brought in our perspective from urban research innovation and urban transformations. And there were a lot of other actors working on creative industries and these kind of sectors. And we found out that we, approached similar topics from different angles. And there's different communities behind these scenes, which work along different logics, but ultimately have the same or similar goals. So I'm super happy to have this discussion today and hopefully connect the dots more as we go along. All right, let's start with you, Susanne. You work for the city of Umeå, right? And you actually work with policymakers and strategists, and you're a strategist yourself, I believe. Tell us a little bit about your work.
Yeah, working with the art and culture in city development is one of the things I do. It's quite fortunate to live and work for a city, as you perhaps mentioned somewhat. It's truly a cultural city, I think. Umeå has invested for more than 40-50 years now, been investing quite heavily in culture and creative sector. It's a pretty small city, in the north of Sweden, 130,000 inhabitants. But for a long time been investing in culture and in creativity, which has paid off, I think, in rich life quality, high levels of trust, as well as for a small city, a pretty vital cultural life, which is it's both broad, it's narrow. We have, professional, amateur actors. It's the high and low. And of course, this also spills up in a pretty high density of actors within the culture creative industry, which of course, not least helps out making the city both more attractive, but also more innovative as it spills over to the industry side. So yeah, so I work at this department with colleagues that you mentioned, planners, analysts, strategists of different kinds, and together we try to find the best ways how to co-create with different actors within the city and the region for our urban development. And we work with, in different physical planning projects. We have a customer working with creatives, which help us think and do things in new ways, I think.
Yeah. Super interesting. Also because I'm a enthusiast for alternative music, and Umeå was on the map for a very long time, since my teenage years, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, over to you, Annika. So you're a research and education coordinator at the Public Art Agency. what is what is it that you like best about your job? And, and what led you there? What led you towards this job?
What led me there? I've been there since 2018, so 6 years, and my position was launched, you could say, together with a new line of works that I was then asked to develop that is connected to knowledge development within the field of public art, which is also then closely connected, of course, to public spheres or the public realm. Shared spaces, both indoors and outdoors, and how we can then sort of communicate and understand and get new understandings around what public art can contribute with to society. So that's what I found interesting, coming from a curatorial background and also working in different ways with public space for many years before entering this role.
Fascinating. And Jenny, welcome to you as well. So you're the Interim Innovations Director at the EIT Culture and Creativity, and you are specialized in creative industries development and international relations and connecting industries and cultural sectors. Tell us about that.
Yes, thank you. Nice to be here with you. I have been working as an interim innovation director at the EIT Culture and Creativity. This is ended now, but I'm still working with the same topic. I never give up the topic. Wherever I work now, I'm working for the region of Skåne in the far south of Sweden.
Yeah.
But still connecting the cultural and creative sector with other sectors in order to promote innovation. And I do that because I really believe, truly believe that the culture and creative sector are key for the different kind of transformation processes which we are in right now with our society, both the green transformation, the social transformation, the digital transformation, societal transformation at large. I think we have in the cultural and creative sector such a superpower, which we just have to put more into focus of our different kind of development processes.
Excellent, thank you so much. And hold that thought. We will go into that in a second again. But before we do, Simon, you have a Menti poll coming up, right? To ask some questions to the participants.
Sure, I do. So I'm gonna share a slide here. All right, do you see it? And you can log in to menti.com and use this code that you see, 3913 2609. Right, so the first question is, where are you having your lunch today? And this first question and the second question is, they are for our Urban Lunch Talk monitoring. So it's for monitoring reasons mainly, but still, of course, we want to know where you are. I'm just gonna try to put this link also. Okay, I see that you have found your menti.com and that you have used the code. And we see that it's, of course, a little bit Sweden here. Ystad in the south of Sweden, Lund also in the south of Sweden, but Stockholm, Sweden, there are some people here. Tyresö, Sweden. But we're not only in Sweden here. I'm in Oslo, but I'm from Bogota. And someone is in Barcelona, and someone is in Dublin. And Karlsruhe from Deutschland. And we have someone from the Netherlands and Poland. So we are a lot of people here engaged from different countries throughout Europe. So let's switch to the next questions, to the next question here. So what type of organization do you represent? So we have one from NGO, and we have from region, of course, also from state level, public authority. Me, myself, is from Formas, Sweden, and that's a research council. It's a public authority. And we have one from a funding agency. University level is really represented here. So let's move on to the third question. And now we let go of this monitoring. Let's see what you think is the most inspiring about this new perspective and or new approach thinking when developing for urban cities, urban transitions. What is the most inspiring new perspective or approach for urban transitions that you have heard of lately? So focusing on locality, Oslo threat, I would like to know more about that. Grassroots is represented here, plurality, drone deliveries. All right, that's a future project coming up pretty fast, I think. Yes. So systems-oriented design is mentioned here, and of course nature-based solutions. It's also named here pluriverse, a design for this. And yeah, as you see here, artistic resilience. Okay, that's inspiring words for new perspective or new approaches when developing for our urban future. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And over to you, Johannes.
Thank you, Simon. I would like to pick up where we left off before the poll, and that is with Janice, your comment that the cultural and creative sectors are key to transformation. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, I think that the culture and creative sector have so many different kind of methods and how they have worked for maybe forever, but which can be used and which can be key now in the transformation processes where we are. And I think to work on a cross-sectoral in a cross-sectoral way is not what we have done during the last maybe 100 or 80 years, where we have built more upon industrial logic, where each company has been working for itself. Like we are building a new technology, we are keeping our secrets, we do something new, innovative. No one else is allowed to hear about until we are ready and enter the market. And I think we really have to get away from this kind of industrial logic and see where we can, what kind of new and alternative innovation systems there are. Because I think with the challenges which we are facing today, which can be a pandemic, which can be a war in Europe, which can be climate change coming very, very fast. We have to work in multi-stakeholder processes, and that is difficult and that is hard. But I think there we have the culture and creative stakeholders, which are really key with their competences. They have always worked in participative processes for a long time, especially the arts. The designers have fantastic processes in how they develop new products, new processes, new business models, and we have to put that into the key of a new kind of system thinking. I think that's extremely important. But we have to relearn, especially on the policy side. We have to unlearn the old system and we have to relearn a new system.
Right. Susanne, how do you do that in Umeå? Do you work along these kind of lines? Does it resonate with you, or how do you work with this kind of creativity or the cultural and creative sectors?
Yes, we try to do that. So we have, definitely some projects with cross innovation going on. So I totally agree with Jenny, and I think the work that Region Skåne has done is also, what do you say, like a, something that we look at and get inspired from. But I would like also to kind of just state that I think that we definitely need the arts and culture and that sector in order to innovate and become more, find new solutions. But I think I also would like to point to the fact that we also need culture and arts. It has a value of its own. We often talk about the role it has to play in different transformations, and we need it in a lot of ways. But it's also this right of its to its just to be art and culture. And I have this quote from a former Minister of Culture, that the culture is the source of deep subjective insight, which creates engagement, which equals kind of community participation and democracy. So that's we need to kind of from the city side, I think we continue to put money on that. In Umeå, we invest most in culture per capita in Sweden, and it's that's one of the reasons is because we know that it creates this engagement. So it's both innovation, but it's as much democracy, or that sense.
Annika, do you agree to that?
I'm happy that you put it out there. Then I didn't have to do it. But I do believe also. It's always this balance between like being instrumentalized, of course, as an art practitioner, and I like with my full heart I agree with what Susanne was saying. But at the same time, I think there's qualities and competence within the arts, both within different professions of art professions, that can also be used in a way for reimagination, for example, and also methods for collaboration that Jenny, you were mentioning before. It's a long tradition, and there is a lot of knowledge on how to create relationships, create trust, walking unwalked paths to find new solutions, and maybe even also to use. So that's from the creatives themselves, like to use, of course, the creative mindset to find new ways of imagination, futures. But there is also, and that's like drawing from the quote that I brought forward for this lunch talk from Helen Burns, is also the training within thinking as an artist, in a way, is learning critical thinking, also to sort of embody that within yourself as a citizen and look at your environment to see how to approach new ways of relating to your environment. And that is maybe a democratic quality, like a skill that you can have to sort of analyze your environment and see what you think could be done differently. It's almost like a democratic agency that you need training in already from the start. And that's why it's also important, like what Susanne was saying, that there are art and culture to be experienced and involved in already from a young age, because then you sort of practice these skills.
Thank you. Yeah, Annika, you already touched upon that. We asked you to provide some quotes or some statements beforehand, which we can discuss. And one of them, another one of them was a change, and I quote, "A change in imagination is necessary for radical urban transformation. First thing is to characterize what is needed for a breakthrough culturally and financially, not only for optimizing decarbonization." This is up for grabs, for comments and reflections, whoever wants to go. What do you think about that? How does it resonate with you? How does it resonate with your daily work?
I mean, if I get to reply to that, I think that is what we're doing, since the Public Art Agency is both working with developing new public art, but also, and most of those processes, if not all, are in collaborative processes with different stakeholders, with placemakers, with property owners, with different kinds of users like students at universities, but also, of course, staff and other members of society, that, and sometimes also, of course, in connection with a region or a municipality. So it's at the core collaborative projects. And then what you need is to sort of if you're doing it by like a guideline that says that you need to follow a certain path, it doesn't work basically, and you don't reach innovation. And that's another core, the mandate from the government for the Public Art Agency is to make innovative public art. So we can't do it as like what the book says, if the book doesn't say to do it in a new way. So you have to risk something. You have to do something that you don't know to reach that.
Yeah, excellent.
And if I may jump in here, and that's against what we normally do in public authorities, to jump in somewhere, and that's maybe where we really need to shift in policy making and to shift in mindset for our politicians, but also for civil servants working in public authorities, to jump in somewhere where you don't know exactly what the output is going to be. I mean, it's already difficult to get funding for these kind of projects because you cannot describe in detail what kind of results you're going to have. You hope for the best, but it's not really clear what you're going to have in the end. So that is really the new thing, I think, about it, that you have to do something which is not where you don't know what is going to be the output, and that's frightening, but at the same time necessary.
Do you agree, Susanne?
Yeah, I think Jenny and Annika are right. I think sometimes we also need to come to the point where we try to learn that, at least, to make decisions, on what we know now, and that's enough. So make kind of and to move forward. We tend sometimes to know, we need too much information always to go forward with different things. We need to test more, and I think that's resonates with this as well.
I would like to test something with you. I recently read a lot about creativity, also on not necessarily connected to culture and the arts, but also on creative thinking and cultivating a creative mindset, if you will. And I was wondering about your reflections. Very often we tend to think of this kind of work as being done by the creatives, also especially in public administration or in other industries which are not necessarily focused on arts or creative sectors. There's the creatives being creative, but alongside my work, I meet so many people who are extremely creative in their own environment, but their system in which they are operating in, being in local public administration, or I see it for myself, being employed by a funding agency, there's no incentive or even, the systems are often built to prevent this kind of creativity for bureaucratic or administrative purposes. And I would really be interested in your reflections on that.
Yes, I jump in here if I may. I think that's what I said already before, that we really need a kind of system change. I mean, I'm working at the cultural department right now, and it already starts there, that we don't have a lot of cooperations with the other departments, which we should have. And we have our own task, and we are not supposed to stretch the limit in any case. And I think it's not just public authorities. I think companies have the same often, a lot of times, and they are not allowed to develop something together. So we talk so much now. I feel like every day we are talking about let's collaborate more, let's co-create more. But it's so let's get out of our silos. But it's so easily said, and it's so very difficult in reality. Because we don't have the structures for it. And I feel like everyone around me is talking about it, and almost no one is doing it for real. I mean, really co-creation, when I think of really creating something together with someone else, another company, maybe even, who's also earning money with it, and then talking about who owns what, who is involved in what, also in the future, what kind of legal framework is there for it, and so on and so on. So as soon as you really get into it and talk about it in detail, it's not complicated, it's complex, and then it gets really, really difficult. And that's where we really have to unlearn and relearn, and that's a hard process for all of us. I would say it's almost the whole of our society. But and that's part of the transformation where we have to go through. That's how large and complex it is.
Some more thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought about this. There's this expression about creative bureaucracy. You know, there's a creative bureaucracy festival. Colleagues have participated some years, and you know, we're looking at that kind of, we're discussing internally, you know, how to become more. We are, you know, quite a few, I think, creative bureaucracy bureaucrats, and just you know, getting inspired from other citizens and other colleagues around the world. I think it's a good way. But I totally agree that we are stuck in this silo thinking and you know, different kind of goals, or we have the same, but you know, different ways of working in different departments, and you know, we don't really speak the same language, or we don't understand each other, or maybe respect each other's competences, you know, to the same extent, or the extent needed. And so it's related to policy making. I think that's also a kind of a barrier to overcome.
Annika, how do you perceive that from a different angle, maybe?
I'm very surprised to hear other people talk about this in the same way that I usually do. So I'm surprised and happily surprised, because then there is more hope kind of to get this focus on I think it's method development for collabs in a new way, where you actually discuss because I guess it's the conflicts of what goals we want to reach. And if the goals are then transition, you can't like lean on your old ideas. And you have to sort of dig into this complexity and system change, and that's not easy. But it's a first step, I guess, is to build trust and respect towards these different competencies, like what Susanne was saying, is, I think, key to reach an understanding in what you can expect from these different professions. And there is actually research done in certain areas and industries for that, but not in all sectors. So then it's also in art, for example, I think there is a need to articulate what the competence is for someone who's not within the field of art, if you want to collaborate in a non-art project. So when you allow yourself to be instrumentalized, maybe because of your knowledge in the field of critical thinking or in other methodologies. So that's one way. And one way I think it is possible to work creatively with it in the bureaucracy is within the policy making, like what Jenny was saying. Like you have to sort of define the space where you can act in, and that can be done within the policy making. You can write how to create the space for innovation, but that it's also sometimes we found that we also need to look at the legal space to sort of find and test, like what is the regulations, how do we interpret them, and how can they be tried in this new reality with the new challenges. It's slightly different from the policy making, but it's often intertwined.
And it can be very connected to policy making. I mean, if we're thinking one step further, how does the public authority of the futures have to look like? Then I imagine, and that's very personal me, I imagine public authorities as the bridge builders in between all the different stakeholders which have to cooperate because we have common challenges. When we're now talking about urban transition, then I can just take the example of, for example, heavy rains, which are coming more and more, or drought, heavy rains or drought. And then are we going to have heavy rains? We need to collaborate between people, the urban planners, architects, companies which are working on different kind of water pumps, civil society, which own houses in a certain area, biologists, which are working maybe with the green in the city, and so on and so on. And who can collect all these different stakeholders together without an own interest? I think that's just the public authority who can do that in the future. So I think that we really have a new role. And as soon as we do that, we also need a legal framework. Otherwise, it's not going to happen in a way that we really are going to have a result. So I think it's very much, as you said, Annika, it's very much it's close to close areas, but also in reality very much connected. And in order to be able to do that, we already have to test now. I mean, we are already in the middle of climate adaptation. So I think sometimes we just have to throw ourselves out and test it. But for that, we of course need also the departments and our bosses who say, yes, okay, do it, go for it. And which can be sometimes a totally different kind of working than maybe we used to do before. So it's for me, coming from a culture department, for example, working with cross innovation, all of a sudden I'm working with a lot of building companies which are using which want to test new materials together with designers, architects, artists, and so on. But in the end, I'm collaborating with a lot of building companies. That's not what my actual job description was about. So just as an example, how it can look like in reality, all of a sudden in everyday life.
Yeah, and it goes against the sort of the know-how of securing processes and providing visualizations of processes or guidelines. It goes against that. So instead of like a company having those guidelines where everyone ticks boxes and follow like a predefined path, it's about letting go of that, and that needs maybe to be described, because otherwise it's too scary because then you can, especially as a public servant, be questioned to why you're doing something and not following instructions in a way. But companies have tried to break loose from these predefined paths, but then they appoint someone as being, now you can work as the agent of change. instead of implementing the change. You know, it's like, I think that's the step that we need to take, maybe. But we can use the logic, maybe, from the agent of change. We can call it that we can.
Yes. Just to bring in another level of complexity, I work on a new European Bauhaus project with the city of Mechelen in Belgium, and they are redoing their waterway or their river through the city. And one of the co-creation or the focus areas of the co-creation process there is also to give nature a voice, not like a stake in the stakeholder process or in the co-creation process, which is a very I find it a very fascinating aspect to do that, because it is led by the city, and it's not a philosophical discussion like 30 years ago or so, but it's actually found its way into practice. But over to you, Simon. I think we have another poll, right?
Yeah, let's be interactive together once again. So I'm gonna share a poll here. And the question is gonna be, who needs to be involved for urban transition? What actors? And here we go. So it's a Zoom poll. So I've also put the question inside of Menti in case some of you have it easier to go there. But now I see some results coming in the Zoom poll. So if you don't find an alternative that resonates with you, it's possible for you to write it in the Zoom chat also. But from the Zoom poll alternatives, I find that 63% are mentioning funding levels needs to be involved, knowledge of practice, and of course this plurality of knowledge. Yes. And we have professional dialogue as an important actor, important part of urban transition. And we have community building. It's important to raise awareness. Innovation is also mentioned here. And partnerships, collaborations. I was supposing that governance structures would come higher in their ranks here, but it's still mentioned though. Conflict is something that is interesting. 38% of you is mentioning this. So I'm just gonna look at the Menti slide and see if there were some responses. And you are writing that commonality, responsibility, to learn, to be inclusive, urgency, results on the ground, climate breakdown, incremental change, budget, blind spots is mentioned here. What needs to be included in a public conversation for sustainable urban change? So not only actors, but also what needs to be there to develop together for urban future. Yes, that's about that. I think I'm gonna close this poll.
Thank you, Simon, for that. We have a couple of minutes left, and before we close, I would be very interested to hear from our guests today what this all means for a funding program or for a research and innovation funding program such as ENUTC or driving urban transitions. We're very keen on allowing these new perspectives or these new kind of cooperation with let's say, the not so usual suspects in research and innovation funding. But what are your reflections? What is needed to really provide a transformative research and innovation program in that sense that allows to tap up on this creativity and these kind of approaches?
Well, I can just say that we tried, we did some method development a few years ago together with Formas. In 2020, we launched a new research call, and the intention was to look into these methods, new methods of collaborating. So 10 projects are gonna have their final presentations on the 15th of November this year, after 4 years of researching. And we had sort of a midterm, or slightly later than midterm last year. And I think we're not done. The job is not done, you could say. It's hard, as someone else mentioned, to collaborate and to find this sort of methods to find the trust, I would say. So I think a lot more is needed to find ways of working together in a new way, not fall back on the old knowledge. And as I see it, there is like a need of mediation or a facilitator role in this. And that was lacking in the list as well, that you just had, the Menti list or the Zoom list that you can vote for. I think we need all of that list, but most of all, I think we need this almost like a professional role of mediating or creating situations around trust building in collabs.
Thanks for that.
Just if I can just tap into that, I think I agree with you, Annika, that this facilitation role is at least from our side as a city, we see that as an important thing. We work with Umeå as one of the mission cities for the EU to become climate neutral within 6 years, which is kind of a short time. And I mean, in that sense, how to make our inhabitants comfortable with this transition, and that it's not felt as something scary or hostile. We need to really to do that shift. We need to work with more methods how to convey the message that it's going to be better. It's going to be a better world, and in that sense also use our imagination. And I think that storytelling probably will be important, and the ability of sketching a future that's not dangerous or worse than the one we have. So yeah, but it's difficult how to do it. But I really think that we tried. We have also some Formas actually funded project with this association cooperation for climate neutrality, which is basically finding new ways and how the city administration and the different associations and private persons in Umeå, what can we do? What type of activities can we do together? So I think we're trying to find those kind of collaborations. I think it's important.
Yeah, very fascinating. Also, the storytelling part. I think from my point of view, I think this is something we can all learn from a lot still on how to in research innovation but also in general, how to get the message across and put it into an attractive storyline. Jenny, do you have some thoughts?
Yes, I think on especially on EU level, I would say that the large EU money is going into the Horizon program. That's where we expect the new to get through that program, and it's always research and development will be in the end innovation or the new solution or whatever. And I'm really impressed that we, through the new European Bauhaus concept, that we have opened up this large program for the first time now for culture and creativity, also through the EIT. So that's the two large steps, and I think that a lot of visionary people also working there. When I see the open calls, for example, New European Bauhaus is meeting nature-based solutions and other collaboration and within the different calls, which is fantastic, I think. But within the structure, a lot has not changed yet. It's still and now I have tried to apply with different smaller arts organization to get this kind of horizon money, and you still need a research institution in the call, for example, in the consortium. Where I would say, why do we always need the research institution? What about artistic research? If we are talking about New European Bauhaus and putting really arts and culture as a key into transforming society, why can not artistic research also exist on its own? Why do we still need the large research institution in the call? And also the rest of the structure is still very inaccessible for the smaller organizations. So I think the large step is done, and a lot of visionary work has been done on EU level, much more than often on national or regional level throughout the EU. So that's impressive, but on the structure side, we have to do more, I think. It's still too complicated, these large funds for the smaller structures to get it, and also getting away from this research and development. That's the only way to get the new. I think we are far beyond that, and it's not mirrored anywhere in these large funds.
Thank you for that. Before we close, I have one last question. What is one or two things you would like to wish for the future of arts and culture and creative industries related to urban transformations? What would you wish for? Maybe let's start with you, Annika.
I think one way of trying it out, that's also been like a reoccurring thought, I think, in this conversation, is if we borrow a concept from urban development called tactile prototyping, could be a way of implementing maybe like a more easy way to just try things out. If we could do that, but still do it in a way that safeguards, of course, democratic processes and things, but in an explorative manner, then that, I think, is a fast way of trying things and learning by doing, in a way that is also maybe trying a slightly different method than the research and development normally does it, and can be inclusive of other practitioners. That's a fast reply to a big question.
Susanne, what's your wishes?
Yeah, if I get the question right, I mean, what the wishes for funding agencies, or from us to funding agencies, or like,
yeah, you can formulate
in
it
general.
Maybe we take it up. We're always fishing for ideas.
No, but I mean, it's if I go back to this also, the respect for competence and in different areas. I mean, there is a big, I think, a big competence in our organization and at local level in general that I think sometimes maybe it's not picked up. I mean, it's around social sustainability, you know, a high competence how we work with art and culture in urban development. And I mean, for us, it's part of our regular process. So sometimes there's a lack of understanding, I think, around this. And when we, you know, applying for funding, or, you know, sometimes we're, I think we would, we try to bend us sometimes to be, you know, really super innovative and think in totally you know, new ways. But, you know, the things we have been doing it for a long time has also been good. So maybe I don't know, more funding for just regular, you know,
Yeah, that comes with
business
the
in the, yeah.
with the excellent claim or with this excellence claim, and you need to show. Jenny, what are your wishes? What are your thoughts on that?
I would just, for future urban transitions, I would just make it very short and say that there should be no urban transition without the culture and creative sector included. Should be a must, because that's the sector which in the end makes our cities livable, and people get a feeling of belonging, and that's the core. They can transport and develop the core values where we human beings want to be, and that's why they must be in every urban transition process.
Thank you so much. That was a nice last comment from you. Thank you everybody for tuning in. If you're interested in what came out or what is coming out of the ENUTC projects on that, check out the website jpiurbaneurope.eu. And there will be also future calls and activities within the Driving Urban Transitions partnership, so in the DUT partnership. So keep your eyes open there as well. We have a call coming up in autumn with a pre-launch somewhere before summer, so you should have the new call topics then. Simon, thank you so much for organizing this thing, this really nice urban lunch talk. Did I forget anything? Any practicalities? Any housekeeping?
No, I don't think so. I think that we have a very exciting conversation. I mean,
yeah,
to work together, it's very obvious that it's not gonna it has to continue on a city level, state level, and national levels, and not just stop with good ideas from boundary breaking projects.
Exactly. So thank you so much for joining. Thank you to our guests. I enjoyed the conversation a lot. I hope you did too. And I hope that we have a chance to continue this conversation in one way or another at some point. Thank you so much. And I hope to see you soon. Bye. See you.